Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk with Brian Poduska. I am Lyndon Wilson, creator of The Difference radio live stream and podcast. We are a social media network that helps small businesses reach audiences, expand their audience, get their voices heard. Most businesses don't struggle or fail because of a bad product or service. They struggle or fail because not enough people knew who they were. And so we wanted to help change that. And we bring in entrepreneurs, small business owners, folks in the real estate industry, and we talk about the things that we're doing to make a difference or make the difference in our lives, in our families' lives, in our businesses, and within the communities that we're serving. Today's show, we're going to be talking about working on your business versus working in your business. And so if you're a small business owner, if you've ever worked for yourself, you're going to kind of understand what that's all about. Wanted to let everybody know real quick today, this is the second show where we've done this, but we are approved now to go live on LinkedIn. So if you are part of the LinkedIn community, you can find us there. I'll run the scroll on that and a little bit of where you can find us. Also, follow us on YouTube and subscribe there. We're starting to do more videos there just because sometimes there's some issues with Facebook and we want to make sure that we have all platforms covered. Having said that, I am now going to bring in my friend and the host of this show, Brian Poduska. How are you doing, Brian?
Hey, Landon. I am fantastic. How are you today?
Good. Really good. So we've already got a lot of people tuning in. I'm excited about that. Looking forward to today's show. We've got someone that's got a wealth of knowledge, I would assume, based on what he's been telling us on working in and versus on your business. I can't wait to hear from him. And then, of course, you've got Carrie. The other co-host today, Nathan, is out sick, so I get to fill in for him and share my 2 cents when it's called for.
Well, your thoughts are always worth more than 2 cents, Landon. I'll give you that. Maybe not much more, but more than 3 cents. In today's currency, that is.
If you give me a nickel, I got to give you change back.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, no, I'm excited. I'm excited about our guest today, Carrie, bringing Carrie on and her guest. I'm excited about being on LinkedIn. This is fantastic. So, hopefully, if anybody's watching out there on LinkedIn, thanks for joining us. As Landon mentioned, the topic this month and today will be working on your business versus working in your business, and the challenges as an entrepreneur or small business owner that we face in that balance, because there absolutely has to be a balance. But, how do you strike that right balance is the key to that equation and success. So look forward to diving into that topic a little bit here today. Let me talk real briefly about Real Property Management Focus, where we focus on your real estate investments. That is my business. I'm the owner of Real Property Management Focus, and we basically work with real estate investors who are looking to get out of the day-to-day management of their properties and hire a professional to do that, where they can focus on their, getting out of working in their business and working on their business and growing their portfolio. So they hire companies like us, Real Property Management Focus. We have a few unique things about our business model and some of the tools that we have. We have a tool called Wealth Optimizer that helps you analyze an investment property from all different angles, not just looking at cash flow, but looking at all the different things that come into whatever return you want. So it's a holistic view on real estate investment. We are a full service real estate broker. So we don't only do management, we do sales, we do acquisitions, things like that for you as well. So that is Real Property Management in a nutshell. But without further ado, let's bring on our co-host of the day, Carrie Cook.
Hello.
Hi, Carrie. How are you?
Good. As usual, Sophie just stole half my seat. So,
as long as you still have part of the seat left.
She rules the house. So what can you do?
Right.
That's how it goes. Carrie, tell us about yourself a little bit.
Well, I am Carrie Cook with Cavalier Realty Group out of the Keller Williams Allen office. Do listings, buyers, leases. I know people don't like doing them, but I do them. Matter of fact, I just did one. Y'all will never believe this. Yes, you will. The commission was $1.
Really?
So you're going on vacation now, huh?
For real. And I'm going to post that check online too, because that's just nonsense.
Who got away with putting a listing out there for $1 commission?
I can't remember who it was, but I'm like on there.
I don't
like,
want to call out names. We're
No,
a
I'm not.
family show here.
I'm gonna make them pay me.
Well,
I'm gonna make them write a check in mail.
So the one nugget I take out of that, upon being, other than it being ridiculous, is the fact that you're working for your client. It doesn't matter what you're getting paid. You're working hard for your client.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go after my client for it. It's just that's exactly right. And when I knew they wanted this one, but I'm not going to turn it away. It's just not the right thing to do.
Right.
So,
well, and yeah, and that's that's what we're ethically bound by as realtors. We're fellow realtors, right? We just have different aspects of our businesses. But yeah, that's what we have to do. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks out there that'll look at that commission and be like, I'm not showing that property, which absolutely isn't correct. But that's oftentimes what happens out there. So that's awesome. Carrie, are you frozen?
Looks like she's frozen.
She looks frozen.
So we'll take her out till she gets unfrozen. There she is. She's back.
You guys were all going in circles.
Well, you were going nowhere. You were stuck. But welcome back.
Yay! So anyway, that's what I do.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about your guest. Let's bring your guest on, and let's dive into the topic, and then we'll take a step back and make sure we share some information about our sponsors, and then I want to make sure that we get a little bit deeper into your sponsor's business or your guest business. Businesses plural.
Right.
So without further ado, go ahead, introduce your guest.
Alan Evans, married to the famous Kelly Raspberry Evans on Kid Craddock Morning Show.
Hello.
They have a podcast that I've been listening to since they started it. Our podcast has little family get-togethers at their restaurant Oat down in Dallas. So I've met them in person, and he's been through a lot. Like you said,
we've even vacationed together, haven't we?
I haven't made it because we had the kid. I'm going next year. I don't care.
Are you?
So
yeah.
we can officially say we have a local celebrity on the show today.
Ish.
She's in the other room.
Well, maybe. All right. Well, maybe we have to bring her in just to make it official.
No, thanks for having me on. This is exciting.
Well, from what we heard before we came on air, Alan, welcome back from Sturgis. I'm glad to see you're still standing upright and have a smile on your face.
Yeah, if I seem a little sluggish, it's because I spent the entire last week in Sturgis, South Dakota. And up there, if your listeners aren't familiar, there's a big motorcycle rally every year. And it attracts about 500,000 people every year. And I actually went up there this year because I have a buddy. His name's Patrick Sowers, and he's the CEO of Operation Once in a Lifetime, which is a charity that grants wishes to military members and their families. And so I volunteered to go up there and help Patrick at his booth. He was raffling off an Indian motorcycle to raise money for his charity and just kind of help him with the logistics of doing all that. But I had this harebrained idea. I thought, why don't I ride a motorcycle up there to Sturgis for $3? I'll ask for $3 a mile on Facebook, and I'll donate that money to Patrick's charity. Because it's about 1,000 miles. My goal would be $3,000. And sure enough, my Facebook followers stepped up, and we raised about $3,500. And I sat my butt on a motorcycle it took us 2 days, but it was 1,135 miles from Dallas. We started at Oat Restaurant, which we'll talk about a little bit. Our restaurant that we have. We started at Oat, and then we stopped in Nebraska, northern Nebraska, and then we finished up the next day in Sturgis. It took us about 30 something hours to get there. So it was a trip.
That's awesome.
Could you walk once you got there?
Yeah, I had saddle sore, but what got me were my legs. My legs were cramping a lot, which was a strange feeling. I had to stop every couple of hours and stretch, but it really wasn't my backside. It was my legs that kept cramping. It was really weird, but quite an experience, just a wild experience. And then once we got up there to Sturgis, all the people watching and the sights and sounds up there. And then we saw Mount Rushmore and Deadwood, and it was just a really great trip. But that's why I may seem like I'm dragging a little bit.
Well, that's awesome, man. I've been up there, probably about 10 years ago now.
Okay.
Not for the bike trip to Sturgis, but I've been up in the area in the Black Hills over there, and did all the touristy things, and stayed in the Badlands as we went out there. It was fantastic.
It's beautiful.
So it's beautiful country, absolutely.
It really is. Yeah.
Well,
What was the temperature like up there?
It was nice, Carrie. It was in the 80s.
Nice.
You know, it was in the 80s during the day, 60s at night. The cabin where we were at, we were actually staying with Jack Daniels. We had a really nice setup. We were lucky. Patrick works with Jack Daniels and quite a bit. They let him use part of their space at their big display there in Sturgis. And so they put us up in their cabin. It's this beautiful cabin that's right by the Sturgis sign that overlooks the city. I mean, it's the way to do Sturgis because most people are in tents or in RVs, and it's, you know, there's no hotels there. So
I saw the view. The view you posted was really pretty.
Yeah,
looking down on Sturgis.
Gorgeous. So we're in this really nice cabin, but there's deer everywhere. There's turkeys running around the cabin. It was a different world, you know, totally different world.
Well, welcome back to civilization again. Glad you're still upright and have a voice left. So
Yeah.
let's do this. Let's dive right into the topic of the month, and that is working on your business versus working in your business, and the challenges that we as small business owners and entrepreneurs have in that balance. So, you know, Alan, go ahead, tell us, give us an example if you can. Especially knowing that you've got multiple businesses and have had multiple businesses going on. How do you, I guess let's level set on how do you define working on the business versus working in the business first and foremost?
Yeah. Well, my background is in marketing. I spent most of my career in marketing and in advertising. So the businesses that I'm involved with now all have a marketing or advertising type spin. I have a podcast that Kelly and I do together, A Sandwich and Some 11. We have our own little marketing company where we do social media influencing and advertising and marketing for companies. And we are now investor owners in a couple of restaurants. And we're not on the operations side at all. We don't know anything about running a restaurant, but we do know
Probably a good
about,
thing.
Yeah. We know some very smart people that do. But we know how to promote and how to do events and how to do social media marketing. So that's our involvement with it. But I guess to answer your question, just overall, you know, I spent 20 something years in the corporate world, and in a big corporate environment, you know, everybody has their little job, and you work in the business on your little job, and you do your little job, and you hand your project off to somebody else, and they do their little job, and you maybe lose sight sometimes of, you know, working on the business or growing the business from a higher level. That's one thing that completely flip-flopped when I, you know, left that world and then went into business on my own and being an entrepreneur, is that, you know, every single day I have to ask myself, you know, is what you're doing here, is it helping you kind of grow your brand? Is it helping you get more exposure? Is it helping you get in front of more people? Or is this something that's not really value add for you? But just that mindset, I think overall has been my biggest adjustment over the years, is to make sure that, you know, I'm thinking about what are the fundamentals here. I'm trying to grow the business. I'm trying to get in front of more people. I'm trying to increase awareness, you know, just those basic kind of fundamental marketing tactics and goals that you want to have when you're trying to grow.
Yeah, I think so. You and I share a little bit of the same background in that I was in corporate America for 20 years, 17 of which was with a large, you know, packaged goods company, PepsiCo. You know, some people may have heard of it. And it's interesting you say that. There are certainly roles where you are, you know, whatever your job is to deliver XYZ deliverable, and it's very pigeonholed, which is kind of how I started. I guess it's how everybody starts when they come into corporate America for the most part, you know, whether it's fresh out of college or whatever. And as you acquire more, as you advance in your career and have, you know, larger responsibilities, your view of the world becomes way more strategic, right? and I was in planning groups where our sole job was to set the plan for whatever business unit we were running, right? So it became, from a large career perspective, you start working in the business, and then eventually your sole job is to work on the business. And that was an interesting career trajectory, and that's fairly typical for anybody who's in corporate America. But you're exactly right, Alan. When you talk about, okay, now I'm owning my own business, whether it's restaurants or you have a podcast that's revenue generating, how do you generate that revenue? Yeah, you're going to have to work in the business to make sure that revenue is coming in. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is working on the business and setting that strategy, setting that business plan, and then figuring out how the heck you execute it.
Exactly. And that reminds me of an exercise I went through. And before we started recording, we were just kind of talking about some of my past experience. But the way the podcast actually started was, at the time I was running a marketing department for a furniture and fabrics company. And I wasn't really too happy in that position. It was a fine job, but I was doing a lot of commuting back and forth from Richardson to Dallas and up to Allen to take care of my kids. And, it was challenging to do all that. Well, just about that time where I was getting really frustrated with all this, Kelly's boss and I had a conversation, and he said, "Hey, why don't you and Kelly start a podcast?" And I had no idea. I'd never listened to podcasts. I had no idea what a podcast even was. I'd heard of them, but I didn't know. I said, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "You just hit record. We'll upload it to iTunes where people listen to podcasts, and that's all you need to do, man. You don't need to worry about anything else." And I said, "Really? I don't have to worry about anything?" He said, "No, I'll give you all the equipment. You just sit down with Kelly, record your thoughts, and we'll do it." I said, "Okay, well, we'll give it a try." So it was a little awkward at first. The first couple that Kelly and I did, it was just kind of strange, sitting there holding microphones and talking, sitting on our living room floor. But we did this consistently for 2, 3, 4 months. And then after about 3 or 4 months, we had enough listeners to where Kelly's boss said, "Hey, we can start selling your podcast. We can start actually generating some revenue on this." I said, "You got to be kidding me. People want to advertise on this thing?" And he said, "They absolutely do." And I said, "Okay, that's great. Let's just keep it going." So, it started to gain momentum. We started to generate some revenue with the podcast. And Kelly came to me and said, "Look, you're miserable in this position. Why don't you jump out there, start on your own? We'll start our own podcast company. We'll start our own marketing company. You can help me with all my off-radio business affairs," because Kelly, she hates anything that has to do with business. And I had a lot of experience doing contracts and, negotiating with people and being the bad guy and saying no and all that kind of stuff. She said, "You can help me with that. And, you just start out on your own." And I said, "You think that'll really work?" And she goes, "If it doesn't, I still have a job and you can always find another job." Right. And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I just jumped out there, and that's really how it started. I just jumped right into it. But, I point back to the point I was trying to make. One of the very first things I did when I jumped into this was I drew a diagram of all the pieces of things all the assets that we had at the time: the podcast, Kelly's radio career, Kelly's social media, my social media, all these pieces, and how I saw all these pieces would be able to fit together to grow us into something a little bit bigger than just Kelly on the radio. We could actually grow something outside the radio. We could grow the podcast. We could have businesses outside the radio. But it was all, all these little things fit together. And social media was probably the biggest underutilized part of what I saw when Kelly and I started the podcast. One of the first things I wanted to do when we started podcasting was to utilize her Facebook, because she had about 500,000 followers on Facebook, and she really wasn't doing anything with them. So I said, "You know what we should do? When we're recording, you and I should go on a Facebook Live, and they can just watch us record." And it sounds silly. Who would want to just sit there and watch two people talk? but we would get 40,000, 50,000 people on there just watching us talk. And I think that early on, that really had a big impact on how fast that podcast grew. Because most podcasts, it doesn't happen that way. Most don't generate a lot of revenue. You know, I last stats I saw were at 1% or revenue generating or something like that.
Right.
So, you know,
there's another stat that shows that most podcasters stop before they even get to their 40th podcast.
Yeah. It's not as easy as people think. You know, it's not one of these things. You know, we do have to kind of think about what our points are going to be, what we're going to talk about. It does take a lot of effort. It does take time. You know, it's not. Let's be real. It's not ditch digging. It's not really strenuous work, but you know, it does take some consistency. There are a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, we just don't want to do it, but we have to, you know, because we have advertisers and we have fans that are expecting it and they want it. So we're in a very fortunate position like that. I just remember thinking, you know, there's a way to grow this into something pretty good if we just kind of again, we go back to what are the fundamentals? What are we trying to do? We need to get a bigger audience on social media to follow us there. We need good content. We need to be consistent with it. We need the listener to feel like they're part of this, you know, and that's why, like Carrie was mentioning, you know, we do events with our listeners. We meet them at restaurants. We have an annual vacation that we take them on vacation to Mexico, you know, a group of listeners. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been quite a ride.
Well, everything you just said just reiterates, and there's so many parallels between, you know, the startup of the difference, and we can spitball on this one, and which I'd like to do here in a little bit. What I'd like to do, Lennon, is if we could take a minute, let's talk about our sponsors real quick, and then let's get back on the conversation about starting our podcast and all the fun stuff that comes along with that. Who we got first? You want to do Wines with an Appeal? Perfect. All right. So Mr. Tom Rowe is the owner of Wines with an Appeal. And Wines with an Appeal is a company dedicated to assisting people fundraise for their favorite nonprofit organization. They provide a fun and educational program to entertain your donors and increase their wine knowledge that could potentially cost the fundraiser absolutely nothing. So there's a few key tidbits there, right? Wine knowledge, wine drinking, having fun, and fundraising, all for free. If you're interested in learning more about this, send an email to tom@wineswithanappeal.com or call them at 214-621-5216 for more info or to schedule your event. And I can tell you, you know, firsthand, Tom is entertaining. You're going to learn a lot about the wines that Tom has, and you're going to get the unique opportunity on top of raising funds for the charity of your choice. You will have the opportunity to purchase wines that you won't get in a lot of other places locally here. So check out Wines with an Appeal if you're looking to fundraise, or heck, just have a fun event. Tom can do that for you. All right, next up is Liberator Health Insurance. One of our other co-hosts, one of our other awesome co-hosts is Mr. Greg Holberg, the owner of Liberator Health Insurance. They provide an alternative to the government marketplace plans at a significant discount versus those plans, with quite a bit more flexibility. Greg offers a deal of the week. The Liberator deal this week is a school teacher was told to add her husband and 2 daughters to her plan offered by the school. Her premium would be over $1,000 per month. Okay. Greg got their family on a great plan for $485 a month. So perfect example, right? It's an alternative to the plan that's offered by the school, which is most likely on par or maybe one of those government marketplace plans, less than half of what that offers. And I guarantee you they have more flexibility as to who they could see, where they could go, what they could get reimbursed for. So if you need to reassess what you're paying every month, you know, if it's over $1,000 or anywhere close to that, please check out Liberator Health Insurance. Greg has some awesome plans to offer. And if he can't put you in a better place, what he can do is educate you on what your options are. So check out Liberator Health Insurance. All right. with that, let's shift back to the startup of the podcast. It resonates, right? Because Lennon and I have been doing this really since the birth of the difference. And I won't get into all the history of it, but basically we started in studio. It sounds like your studio is sitting on your living room floor, Alan. But you have mics, and what we did, we started in a studio, and we had, nice boom microphones, and it was very, very professional, right? None of us, I don't think any of us had any radio experience or had ever been in that environment.
I'd listened to one before.
What's that?
I had listened to one before, but that was the only experience I had with radio.
Right. I guess that's the only experience we had, right? Carrie, I know you were apprehensive of you were a guest originally before you became a co-host, and so obviously you went from, and I know you were kind of terrified to come on the first time as a guest, and now you've graduated all the way to the point where you're a co-host. So you get that comfort level after you do it enough times, but it's where you started, and then now where you guys are, and the realization of the power that you have through social networking, through the different services that you guys broadcast out through, and we have the same, basically core here at the difference is we're trying to do the same thing and get local businesses connected and get visibility to you guys. So I love that when you talked about, laying out all your assets from a working on the business versus working in the business standpoint, that high level, okay, my assets are 1, 2, 3, 4, whether it's, your wife's social media, your social media, your radio presence, all the other things that you're trying to do. How do you make those best integrate and grow exponentially? And I think that's a great way to look at it. I guess a follow-up question to that is, how did you go through that process, and what was your process to optimize and try to figure out how to connect all those dots?
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of is. It's been a learning process throughout the years. Over the years, it took a while, I guess, not a long while, but it took a little while to understand, who the customer is, who's the listener, who is the customer, who are the people that are going to frequent the advertisers, why do they want to listen. Why are they so curious? Obviously Kelly is a fixture in Dallas-Fort Worth radio, and that's an obvious answer.
There's another answer.
What would you say?
Because if you've listened to her for any amount of time, her voice changed when she met you. She was really happy. I think that pulled a lot of people in. Who is this guy she's married to? Who is this joker? Do we like him? Does he pass our approval?
See, that's really great insight right there. It sounds a little tongue in cheek, but I think that's very true. I think there are a lot of people just like Carrie. They're like, okay, my Kelly's getting married to this. Who's this guy? I want to kind of vet this guy out. I want to see what this is all about. And I think once they started listening and then kind of got to know me a little bit, it was a little easier to kind of become a fan of the podcast, I suppose. But, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not a political podcast. We're not a serious podcast. It's a very lighthearted, fun podcast. And we feel about life and family. And we do talk about some things sometimes that are hard to talk about. We really do. And they're very difficult to talk about. But those would be the minority of the podcast. Most of them are fun and funny, and I've just found that, and I think Kelly would agree, that that's what our listeners want. They want to get away from the news. They want something that helps them get through the day. We hear from so many people that say, I like to put you guys on kind of in the background. I can hear everything you're saying, but I'll be around the house working, or I like to walk with you on. I like to work out with you on. Cleaning, whatever, but you're kind of just always there with me. And we like that. We like hearing that. But it took a while, I guess, to understand that that's what the customer wants. That's what the listener wants. And we need to make sure that that's what we're giving them, and is in as creative ways as we can. So
Alan, let me ask you this question, because, I'm still a rookie. I'm going on 2 years doing this. And I tell everybody, it's like trying to run and tie my shoes at the same time. I'm learning and I'm doing all together.
Oh, we are too.
But one of the things that I wanted to do with the difference, and in a professional world, I felt like it was important. And it sounds like, and I know that that's why, people that have followed Kelly all these years, she lives her life in front of everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think where you talked about people are tired of watching the news, we're craving authenticity. We're craving real life, and we want to cheer for people when things go well. And then when things aren't going well, it makes us feel like that we're normal, right? And we've tried to do that with the difference and in business, because I want these small business owners to know, just because you're watching this highlight reel of this professional out there, it doesn't mean that they're not struggling with some of the same things we're all struggling with. What are your thoughts on that as far as just being authentic?
I think that's spot on. I think that's absolutely spot on. And when someone tells me that one of the things they like most about our podcast is that it is authentic, to me, that's the biggest compliment. Because to me, that means that, I personally, and Kelly, I mean, that's the only way we know how to be. I mean, we're not really any different on the podcast than we are in real life. It's just, we do like to get on there and joke and do all that kind of stuff. But, it's definitely not an act. It's just, we just get on there and kind of let it go where it goes. And authenticity to us is super important. It's always been important to Kelly. And then once I started doing this too, it would be unfair to go on there and, not give the listener really a really good insight into what life is like, or what our life is like, because that's what they're interested in. Now, there are some things obviously that we just, we can't talk about, but 95% of what, we talk about on the podcast, I mean, that's what's happening. It's real life. It's what's going on in our lives. And I can't tell you, I've shared stories about, I've had my own, I'll throw it out there, I've had my own mental health issues, struggles with that and depression. And we've talked about that on several podcasts. And I can't tell you the amount of people that have emailed me and written me and called and said, man, that stuff you talked about, that really helped me. I'd never thought about it that way. Or I thought that I was the only one that was going through that. Or I thought that, I was stupid to feel that way or whatever. But, I guess that's what I mean. That the authenticity is so important, because you never know what someone else is going through, and when you share your story, it's amazing how many people out there are just like you.
True. Absolutely. Would you say that doing that, I mean, I think doing it from a personal level and a business level, they have their similarities, but they're still different. Is it therapeutic for you sometimes just to let this, just to come out and just pour it out in front of people and just say, here's who I am, and then see that feedback of people that embrace that?
It was, when we first started, it's probably not something I was super comfortable with, but over time it became a little easier for me to do. And you make a good point there. You've got our podcast, which is more of an entertainment format, and there are other podcasts such as yours that have more of a business skew. But you can still have that authenticity in both. Mm-hmm. I guess the subject matter is quite different. But if I were doing a business podcast every week, I certainly wouldn't have a problem sharing, reasons why I thought a project was screwed up, or something that I really messed up on. And man, I wish I could do that over again. And oh man, that supplier, he messed up, but really I messed up. And, I'm just saying, I wouldn't have a problem in either format. I don't think, business or entertainment, in that authenticity, because I think that's the most important part.
Right.
So on that point, Alan, we were talking before we all came on the air. So you obviously have several different businesses going. Share with us an example of one that didn't work, right? Like one of the, again, authenticity. What happened, and what did you learn from it?
Well, there were a couple. There was one that Kelly and I really wanted in a lot of, celebrity types or people that have a strong brand name like Kelly will usually try to do at some point, and that's to start their own retail brand. And, retail is it's a very, very difficult thing, especially if, you don't get that business plan just right, and you don't understand exactly kind of where you're wanting to go and how big you're wanting to get and how you're going to supply it and how you're going to fulfill it and all this. I mean, there's a lot to retail, which is Captain Obvious. But we started a retail business called Emma Kelly and Me back in 2019. And we were really, really doing well with it. We launched it. It was women's apparel and purses, accessories. And Emma Kelly is Kelly's daughter. So Emma Kelly and Me was Kelly's brand of things that she would like. And it was, kind of sensible, mid-priced women's clothing and accessories. And it was a tremendous amount of work because Kelly and I think one of the biggest mistakes we made was we thought we could do it all ourselves. And, I fancy myself as somebody who knows how to do a lot of different things. I knew how to do marketing and the strategy around that. I knew how to set up websites. I knew how to set up a little fulfilling system. We have a little warehouse in our garage. We had all the basic pieces. We had the model, which is Kelly. So we just had to get the clothes and then advertise on social media. So our problem wasn't getting the word out and people not knowing who we were. We had a lot of people who knew who we were. And in fact, I think we grew the Instagram to over 10 or 15,000 in just a few months. We had a nice following. Our problem was, we just kind of couldn't keep up with the seasonality of that business. It's a very quick business where once you shoot for spring, you already need to start thinking about what you're buying for fall or for summer and then fall, after that. And it's just so quick. So it was just the two of us. And I think at the end of the day, it was just kind of, we bit off a little more than we can chew. Mercifully, it kind of ended in that COVID shut down all the suppliers that we were getting our clothing from. So we were doing well with the business. It was even starting to become profitable, but then we couldn't get any clothes. I mean, we couldn't get anything. And then we kind of pivoted and started selling masks for a little while when there was mask shortages and we were trying to help out with that. And then after that, it just kind of fizzled away. But I think with retail, the biggest a couple of mistakes we made just looking back were it wasn't staffed properly. We needed more people to help us. We had a small team, but we needed more. And Kelly and I think, needed to be kind of more removed out of it. And again, we needed to be working, on the business and not like we were doing everything. Like Kelly was running shipments over to the post office, in the truck. We were both doing everything.
Yeah. And that's exactly the nugget that I took out of when you started going into how it progressed and then how it, ultimately how it kind of came apart. It's exactly that. Especially in a business like retail, because I was on the consumer packaged goods side, so I kind of had the ability to see how it all came together. Where whether it's ingredients that come together, or you have materials, inventory, all that thing that you have to manage, the logistics of getting it out, order fulfillment, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. If you've never been in it and you don't realize that you need people to run that part of the business, I can see the challenge from a mile away, right? And I can relate for sure. And I guarantee you there's a bunch of business owners that are out there, hopefully listening to the show here, that can relate and say, yeah, I've got this business. I don't know how I'm going to resource all the different facets that have to happen to make it successful, right? Mm. And that's the ultimate question of how do you pull yourself out of the working in the business piece and get the right people there to let your strengths and your, as a leader, as the owner, as the leader, as the business grower and the business developer, how do you focus on those aspects versus, worrying about whether or not I have enough T-shirts in to be able to ship out and disappoint all my customers that want this awesome product that I created at a high level, but it's very difficult to fulfill at the lower level.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly what happened to us. It was, I was working on the wrong things. Kelly was probably working on the wrong things. And, but learned a lot and we haven't buried it completely. We may try to come back with that brand at some point in a smaller way. but that's one example of something that didn't quite work out for us very well.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you know, of course, I'm sorry it's not taken off the way that you guys had planned, but you know, sounds like there's still some brand equity there. So
yeah,
you know, down the road.
Yeah, and that's okay, because you know we had these discussions about, you know, I'd say, Kelly, look at the you know, the effort we're putting into this, and here's the return. There are other things that I think that we can better do where it's lower effort and it's a really big return. And you know, social media marketing and influencing, it's pretty amazing. But Kelly and I are both involved in doing a little bit of that. We both work with a couple of different agencies that will run products by us, and we don't do all of them, but they'll say, hey, I have a client, P&G is one of them, which was really nice for us. And they, you know, P&G wants you guys to do these Tide and Swiffer things, and are you interested? And we're like, absolutely, we're interested, you know. And you know, not a lot of behind the scenes, not a lot of work needs to be done to create those, you know, those ads or the content for Instagram or for Facebook. There's really not a lot of heavy duty production that needs to be done. It's all on your iPhone. But then the payoff is a lot better than retail. So we kind of focus more on that part, you know, doing more social media marketing. And then we were led into the restaurant business, which I mentioned. We're helping our restaurant group with their social media and their marketing. So we're kind of just learning, you know, okay, this is where we fit. These are the things we're good at. These are the things we should focus on, instead of getting into the nitty gritty in stuff like we were doing in the retail.
Alan, I've got a question for you. Sorry about that, Brian.
Good.
With your experience in influencing and social media marketing, what would you say to a small business owner that feels like it's not necessary to put themselves out on social media? Or how important is video branding and the opportunity to use social media to get in front of thousands? I mean, what is your advice on that?
For the business, it's always been tricky. You know, and I was involved in social media marketing, obviously, in my career in the corporate world. It was always this tough push-pull. You know, the executives want you to sell stuff, but as a marketing person, you know that people don't want a hard sell on social media. They really don't. They don't want to see hard sell ads and sales pitches in their social media. So for a business, number one, I think it's a big mistake for any business to say, no, I don't need to be on social media. I think that's a huge mistake. Right? Now, there are right and wrong ways to be on social media. You know, I follow a lot of different businesses, small businesses on social media. Some do an incredible job, and the ones that do an incredible job they give life to the business. So you can see, like, oh my gosh, look what these guys are all about. Oh, they do donuts on, you know, somebody brings donuts in on Monday morning every morning, and you get to see what kind of donuts they're eating. And, you know, it could be stupid, silly stuff, but you get a feel for who the people are at the business. And then every once in a while, oh yeah, okay, we're running this special on XYZ. Be sure to check it out. You know, here it is. But it's almost like a 4-to-1. You know, engaging content, ad, engaging content, ad. You know, it's got to be more about giving life to the business than a sales pitch in somebody's face. That's always been my opinion to it. Anyway.
Right. Well, that's one thing that we've all talked about and we're trying to focus on as we get better, but it's really bringing the human element to the brand and not the commercial element to the brand. Exactly.
Who are the people at the business? What makes them tick? What's their day like? I'm just brainstorming now. Like if we were coming up with a social media calendar, you know, what are the little activities that everyone in the office does? Do y'all ever go on a bowling day together? You know, it could be silly stuff like that, but people love, you know, seeing videos about stuff like that. That's real. Again, back to the authenticity. That's real.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we've always strived to do that. You know, here's part of the difference is just, you know, bring on people, tell us your story, right? Like, just go, you know, put that personality out there and let people know who you are. And then on the back end, associated with the brand or whatever businesses you have or whatever, you know, whatever foundation you may be trying to raise funds for, right? So tell us too, Alan. I know you mentioned it a little bit about your restaurants, and you're kind of out of the operational piece though. But how can people their barbecue, right? So very locally appreciated. Tell us a little bit more about those businesses.
Yeah, the name of the restaurant is Oaked, OAKD, Oaked Barbecue, and there's one location in Dallas on 5500 Greenville, and we're about to open another location in Addison. But this is craft barbecue, which means we get our meat directly from a ranch. It comes right from Rosewood Ranch to our restaurant. It goes right into the smokers. And
Nice.
Yeah, and kind of what's a little different about Oaked that you don't get at some other craft barbecue restaurants is that we have Wagyu beef. And Wagyu is a very tender, originally Japanese style beef, but we have Wagyu brisket and we have Wagyu beef ribs, and all our sides are handmade, and we have a pastry chef, and all our desserts are handmade. So it's craft. It's like home cooked, line style barbecue. We'll run out sometimes, at lunch or at dinner, but that's the concept. Indoor, outdoor seating, and just a really fun atmosphere. We have live entertainment on the weekends as well. But it's been a lot of fun to be involved with. We've done a lot of events there, met a lot of friends there. And, Kelly and I, again, we kind of just help with the promotion of the restaurant and the marketing, and we're investors in it. But the head chef, Mike Lane, he is an incredible chef. He's very connected in the Dallas-Fort Worth chef community, and he just does a super job with it. And he's going to do a super job with the next one as well. But it'll be a brewery. So the one in Addison, it'll be a bigger restaurant, and it will also have a brewery. So we'll start brewing our own Oaked branded beer there too.
Really?
Now I'm starving. So, I'm starving and thirsty now.
I was going to say, you had me when I'm looking at this screenshot here that's replaying. I'm like, okay, every time I see it, I get more and more hungry.
Yeah.
And then you throw a beer in the mix, and it's like, shit, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in. Twist my arm.
No, I tell you what, guys, and I know I have to say this because I'm involved, but we eat there all the time. The food is really tremendous, and if you just listen to the people who go there, they'll tell you best. We've gotten a lot of really great feedback. It's great food. I'm always concerned about the service. I want everybody to be treated like a VIP that goes in there, and I think we're doing a good job with that as well. And it's a great place to just go have a drink and have some barbecue and eat outside. It's really wonderful to be involved with. Sometimes
Alan has to get an Uber to go home, though.
I do. That has happened
at those family meetups.
Yeah, food coma can be a bitch, right?
That has happened before. I've had to be stuffed in a car before and taken home for sure. I have my own drink there. See, it's a Allen's Old Fashioned. So, and then Kelly's got her own martini there. She's got the Kelly Raspberry Dirty Martini.
So if we're on the VIP list and we order those, we get comped on those specific drinks only.
I can hook you up with a free appetizer probably.
That's awesome. No, thanks for sharing that. I now have a place to go for sure. I'm earmarking that. So is the Addison location, is that open currently?
It's not yet.
Okay.
Spring is what we're shooting for, probably summer.
Okay.
But I don't know if you guys are familiar. Do you remember the old Chamberlain's fish?
Oh, yeah.
Seafood restaurant?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was on Beltline, right up there near Midway. Quorum, I think.
Quorum to Midway, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the new space. So if you remember that place, it was a really kind of dark, cozy steakhouse. So gutting the whole place, it's going to look more like the Oaked in Dallas, which is more open and fun and rustic looking.
Okay, Brian, our next show get together with Carrie and we may have to go do it at Oaked.
We can do that. We can let Alan know we're going.
I don't think there's any may about it. I think it's a given.
If you're serious, please let me know. I'll tell Mike, and he'll set you up with we have a little area there where you can set up your AV, and he'd be happy to do it there. Just let me know if you want to do it there for sure.
Sure, awesome.
Well, and depending on the size, we may be able to do some quarterly events there as well.
Yep.
Even better. Yeah. See, he can come up with different, different options for your group. No, it sounds like I'm the catering manager, but no, he
Watch out for you're signing up, what you're signing up for.
Yeah, he can make you whatever you need. But I think we had on our grand opening, I think we had over 500 people there. So he made food for about 600 people. I mean, he's got the capacity to make a lot of food, so that's not a problem.
The smokers are huge.
Yeah, 3 big smokers.
Y'all are killing me.
Wait till you go down there and smell it. You need to go down there and smell it.
I know. I'm thinking about it right now.
Well, I want to announce a happy hour that we're sponsoring tonight on the Cook DFW Roofing and Restoration side. It's at Boomer Jacks in Fairview off of Stacy Road. It's from 5:30 to 7:30. We do it the third Thursday of every month. And again, it's Cook DFW Roofing and Restorations that sponsors it. So we'd love to see some people come out, get to meet some other people.
Fantastic. Yeah, get out there tonight.
Network.
I think the rain is done, so get the heck out there.
Well, we're going to be inside because it's been warm. So we moved it inside for July, August, and September, I think. But normally we meet on the side patio outside. And we have appetizers and snacks, and you buy your drinks, but their drinks are so cheap, and happy hour prices are great. So it's just not that big of a deal.
Awesome. Well, on that note, one more question I want to ask you guys before we wrap up. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, and happy to hear all your guys' thoughts on this. So we talked about the balance between working on the business versus in the business, right? There's also the balance of personal time, and what that means to really both of those, right? So they're all kind of interrelated. I find myself as a business owner, robbing my personal time to fill in, whether it's in the business, and it's mostly, unfortunately, in the business and not on the business. I rob that personal time to feed some of those other avenues. How do you guys, or number one, do you guys make a point to, give yourself some personal time and to enjoy whatever it is you personally do, family, friends, entertainment, et cetera? Number one, do you do that well? And number two, how do you do it?
I'll go. So, and Dana and I were just talking about this morning. Starting a new business, you have to put a lot of time into it. And the problem is that it sucks you in. You do it for 6 or 8 months and you're so used to doing it, you keep doing it. So he's up till 1 o'clock every morning working. He leaves, if he has a bill, he leaves at 6:30 in the morning. He's home about 6:37, starts on paperwork. He's up till 1. No personal time. But I get two as a spouse, you've got to look at it as we're growing a business. So we've got to allow that time, but we also can't sacrifice our personal time. So it's a struggle. I have started stopping working at by 8 o'clock. Hopefully we've eaten dinner by then, and at least spending time with the dog, because she's sitting there staring at both of us at the desk all day long, crying and upset. So, sometimes you just have to stop and say, it'll be there tomorrow. Whatever. But it's a struggle. It really is.
I can relate to that. Alan, how do you do it?
Well, our situation is again pretty unique in that I work with my wife. We do the podcast twice a week, so we have to sit down together twice a week and talk, which is really a great thing. I've always loved that because it forces us to sit there and have a conversation, and I'll learn things on the podcast that I didn't know she was doing, and vice versa. So it's work, but it's also kind of a blend of personal time, which is a little strange. But I have a kind of a rule in that if I have my kids, now I share time with my ex-wife and the kids, so they bounce back and forth. If I have my kids, I'll usually defer to anything that they want to do with me when we have that time together. And if that means that I have to stay up after they go to bed and work, then that's what I'll do. But I work my schedule around that schedule. And really, Kelly and I, we're pretty tied in with one another in that, we have to talk on the podcast. She works at home. I work at home. We see each other a fair amount, a lot more than probably a lot of couples. And that, both of us also feel like if we are feeling disconnected, we always say, hey, let's just go out and we're just going to have a date. Let's not think about anything that's work related or podcast related or anything related. Let's just go get some pho or some sushi or something. And let's do a quick one-on-one date. So we'll do those kind of things too. But it sounds like I have it figured out. I don't. It's just, I've learned over the years to kind of just manage that time. And there are certain times that I definitely will not work. There are certain times where I have to and I don't want to, and it might be, at midnight or 1 a.m. I just do what I have to do, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that kind of resonates with all of us as business owners, right? Is that, I've had many a 1 a.m. nights or mornings, I guess you can say, not by plan, but just by brute force. You have to get through it.
Right.
I mean, Lennon, you know what it's like, right? You're juggling a lot of different things and a new relationship that's growing, right? That's
right.
Bigger and bigger things. So, yeah,
it was easier before I got involved in a relationship. I could be selfish with my time, but as an old football coach, you were taught as a player, coach, everything. You got into the habit of a routine. Right. You do this at this time, you do this at this time, you do this at this time. And that helps so much. There are times where routine goes out the window and things change. And I was told by my mentor one time, be very careful and not let someone's lack of planning constitute an emergency on your part. And so I really am careful with that. And in the beginning, it was a struggle because I honestly, Brian, you know me pretty well. I kind of say what thought hits my brain at that particular moment. And I actually said that, I can't let your lack of planning create an emergency on mine. And, people kind of looked at me like a cow at a new gate. So I've learned to be more diplomatic on how I express that. But, just looking at it and if someone comes to me with an issue, I'm going to communicate with them. I'm not going to blow them off, but I may not handle that problem until tomorrow, until a different time. But, there's always going to be the exception to the rule. There's going to be times where that fire's too hot and you have to put it out now. But in most cases, for me, just staying disciplined to my schedule, to my routine, and to my commitments to myself to do the best I can in every situation, that's how I deal with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Though I'm not so sure that diplomacy was in your vocabulary previously. You said that, but
I'm getting better. Facebook is slapping me on the hands a couple of times. It makes me rethink some of the things that I think and say.
Well, I'm glad to see you're learning and growing.
Always.
Well,
that's
guys,
why I stay behind the scenes. That's why I stay behind the scenes so much.
Right,
I
exactly.
mute myself and take myself off camera.
We had to pull you in today because Nathan couldn't be with us. So, but no, we appreciate you stepping in for Nathan. But sometimes we do prefer you behind the scenes.
Most people do.
Well, all kidding aside, guys, great conversation today. Alan, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
For being Carrie's guest. Carrie, thanks for being the awesome co-host that you always are. Lennon, thank you for all that you do with The Difference. We appreciate everything you do. Production-wise and on a larger level, check out the hashtag The Difference on Facebook. There's all kinds of great content there. That's it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys and look forward to this coming weekend. Please enjoy yourself. Alan, continue to recover from Sturgis. Hopefully you have a quiet weekend this weekend. We will continue next week on Thursday, as we do every Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. Central Time. We're going to continue to dive into the working on the business versus in the business and the challenges that presents for a small business owner. But until then, like I said, have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.
Alan, thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
Thank
Alan.
you. Nice to meet you.